Hey everyone, my name is Michael Gray. I'm an adjunct professor at Simmons College, and I want to welcome you to a virtual summer semester of American Government and Politics. I also want to welcome you to my garage. I'll be recording most of these from outside my home because I'm blessed to have a very healthy, very beautiful 10-month-old daughter inside who's with my mom right now, and also a very healthy, very beautiful 6-month-old puppy who's also very loud. And they're inside the house, and so I record most of these outside the house. This is how we got through the spring semester of this class, and we'll be doing a summer semester the same way. I want to thank you all so much for your dedication, for your diligence, for your continuing effort to get the most you can out of your college experience, out of your higher education. And I want to thank you for bearing with me, for bearing with the college as we work through this interesting time when we cannot be together in person, but we haven't quite yet set it up to where we can do a proper virtual classroom. However, we're going to cover the material in this class. You're going to learn the things you need to learn. And first and foremost, if you leave this summer semester with nothing else, and I hope you get a lot out of this, but if you get nothing else out of it, I want you to know how the United States government and political system impacts you and your family and your friends and your community, why you should care. Because if you're like me, you learned this stuff in high school, but it was taught in this very dry, very Eurocentric way, where it was mostly about these fantastically talented white dudes who started this country and who still run this country. You can't tell I'm being a little bit sarcastic, but these people like George Washington and Thomas Jefferson, very important people, very important people. But you had to memorize names and dates. You had to memorize facts about history and civics and social studies, and that's not how this class is going to be. I want you to understand how the process of American government works and how it impacts you. We're going to talk about people like Washington and Jefferson a little bit, but I don't think I don't think I'm doing my job if I talk about the impact those folks have had on our government and leave out the fact that Washington had like 300 people on his property that were there involuntarily. We'll talk about the founding of the country a little bit. This is not a history class. We'll just touch on it a little bit. But we're also going to talk about how the strongest and most robust economy in the world was built on the backs of people who were brought here against their will. That being said, the political system and the government in this country today in 2020 impacts all of us. It's not just the things you may hear about on the news, it's items that don't make the news. Things that people don't deem newsworthy, but absolutely impact all of us. The first semester I taught this class at Simmons a few years back, I remember asking the students in the classroom that first day, why do you think that Simmons College and most colleges in the United States require people to take a class on American government and politics? And one student raised her hand and she said, to stay woke, which is the perfect answer. The perfect answer, because we have to be aware of the things that impact us. We have to be aware of how the system impacts us and how we can impact the system. We, meaning regular Americans. If you're like me, you're not wealthy, you weren't born into wealth and political stature, but you still live in this country. You still have a right to vote. And your vote matters more than you think it does, particularly if you take a big picture approach to how our system functions. So, the email I sent you where I had the link to this video, I also sent you a document outlining how we're going to do grades in this class and the subject matter we're going to cover. The grades are pretty straightforward. We're going to have 3 quizzes and a final. 3 quizzes and a final. I will assign the quizzes on one weekly lecture video here on YouTube, and then they'll be due by the following week. So you'll have 1 week to complete them, and they're going to cover material in the class, and I can't say this enough, I don't require you to memorize names, dates, places. If you understand the processes of our government, that's what you need to know. So with that, I'll tell you briefly what we're going to cover. Oh, I'm sorry. 3 quizzes and a final, and participation. Participation is big. Normally, I just take participation based on attendance and who speaks up in class. Your words don't have to be eloquent. They don't have to be perfect. They don't have to be quote unquote right. Most things we'll discuss in this class have no right or wrong answer. But that's how I usually determine participation, and it is 50% of your grade. Here's how I'm going to do it this semester. Since we're virtual, since we're doing this over YouTube and email, when I post a YouTube video like this one right here, tell me in the comments below that you watched the video. Just say watched, say here, say whatever you want to say to indicate to me that you watched the video. Also, if you have questions, comments, or thoughts about that lecture video, then post that as well. And I'll respond to it either in the following week's lecture, or when appropriate, I can get back to you over email or phone individually. And my cell phone number is on the syllabus. That's my cell. It's the only phone that I use. So call or text anytime. I'm really responsive to text. I do my best with phone calls, but like many of our adjuncts, I have a full-time day job, so I do the best I can with that. But I'm very responsive over text messaging and email as well. So that's how I determine participation. You comment on the video below that you watched it. Let me know you saw it. And please, if you have thoughts or comments or questions, post them there as well. Okay, so for this summer, we're going to cover a few broad topics. We're going to talk about the structure of government, talk about the levels of government and the branches of the federal government, and how those folks determine all sorts of things that impact all of us both throughout our lives and in our day-to-day lives. We're going to talk about the political system. America has a 2-party system. We'll talk about the pros and cons of that system and how it functions. We're going to talk about, as I keep referencing, how government impacts you, why you should care, and why you should get involved and stay involved. Being involved means different things for different people. But there's an old saying in this country that if you don't vote, you can't complain. Well, that's not true. As we'll discuss in this class, you have a First Amendment right to say almost whatever you want. But if you don't vote and you complain about the outcome of an election, you're not wrong, but it is kind of stupid. So don't be stupid. Vote if you can. We'll also discuss the fact that some people in this country have been egregiously disenfranchised, and although they should constitutionally have the right to vote, they are unable to, either for legal reasons or lack of access to polling places. We'll talk about that. And every semester, the last part of the semester, I touch on the civil rights movement. I touch on the Civil War, the end of the Civil War, and everything that happened after that, from the Ku Klux Klan intimidation of voters early on in the 1870s and the federal government's response to that, through the Jim Crow era in the South, the racial discrimination outside of the South, and up through the 1950s and 60s. That time period that we learned about in high school is the civil rights movement. But we will also talk about the fact that if the civil rights movement is defined as a struggle for equality for people of color, and more specifically for African descendants of slaves, the ADOS population, then that movement's not over. And I find generally with Simmons College students, that's not a very hard sell, that most people believe, they already know that. They already know that when I say it, that any struggle for equality in this country or equity in this country, in our political system, is not over. It's far from over. We're in the middle of it right now. And so we'll get into that. And I usually just spend like the last week or two of class on that, but I think given events going on in the world, and given the fact that this is, after all, a historically black college, we can spend a little more time on that than you would have at other, than I have in the past, and that you would get at any college that's not an HBCU. So that's what we're going to do. And I'm sending you a document, again, with this same email, that outlines time frames for the quizzes and the final. All that's subject to change, but if I change any of it, I'll give you lots of notice, as much notice as I possibly can, over email and through these YouTube videos. So, if you have any questions or thoughts about what I just said, or the document I've sent you with this email, the email link to this video, please let me know. Please get back with me, either over text message, phone call, or email. Otherwise, be expecting these videos to come up no later than, I'm a little late today, but generally no later than 4 p.m. on Thursdays. I may have them up earlier some days and right on time some weeks as well, but you don't have to tune in at 4 o'clock on Thursdays, of course. This is about when you have the time. I know with everything going on right now, students and faculty, certainly myself included, we don't have the ability to work within certain business hour constraints the way we did before things started shutting down for COVID-19. And so I'll post them by 4 o'clock on Thursdays, and I ask you to let me know as soon as you've watched them that you've watched them, and give me your participation, but also any feedback you have, questions and thoughts before the next Thursday's video, the following week. That's how it's going to work this semester. If you have any questions or thoughts, let me know. And we're still, at this moment, still trying to nail down a time that some of us can meet in person next week. But for now, this is your first week's lecture. And rather than specific content, it's just an overview. But I want to meet with you all, if possible, next week. And either way, there's going to be another YouTube video no later than 4 o'clock next Thursday, which will be June 11th. The textbook is listed in your syllabus. If you have trouble getting that book, let me know. Simmons College actually has some that they can loan for the semester. They're also on Amazon. You don't have to have the newest edition. You don't. But get the book if you can. And I will be talking to you all soon. So thank you so much for watching this video. Post in the comments below. Let me know that you saw it. And I'll be talking to you all soon. Stay safe. Enjoy whatever time you can with your families in this unusual time that we're all going through right now. So thank you all so much. See you next week.